Could one of the NFL's most electrifying players really not belong at quarterback? Since the beginning, LAMAR Jackson has heard the same doubt from every level from high school to the pros that he shouldn't be a quarterback. And yet, despite achieving what only legends like Tom Brady have done, LAMAR still faces doubt at every turn. The story is more than just statistics. It's a relentless battle for recognition that reveals a hidden truth about the NFL. LAMAR Jackson's journey is one of resilience, of proving time and again that he's more than just a runner. Today, we'll reveal the real LAMAR Jackson, the quarterback who shattered every barrier, and why his fight for respect may just be beginning. His life began in the tough streets of Pompano Beach, Florida. Born on January 7, 1997, LAMAR learned about struggle early on. His family was no stranger to hardship, but it was their love and resilience that shaped LAMAR into the man he would become. Yet, just as he was discovering his passion for football, tragedy struck his family in a way that no child could ever be prepared for. When LAMAR was only 8 years old, his father and grandmother both passed away on the same day. His father, LAMAR Jackson Sr., was his first hero, the one who introduced him to football. They'd play together in the yard, and LAMAR's dad would talk about how one day his son could go all the way to the pros. Losing both his father and grandmother was devastating. That day marked a permanent shift in LAMAR's world, but it was his mother, Felicia Jones, who became his anchor. Felicia didn't just step into the role of mother and father. She became his biggest mentor, trainer, and support system. From that moment on, it was Felicia and LAMAR against the world, and she made sure he understood that while their family had suffered, their story was far from over. Felicia was determined to give her sons every chance, no matter how tough it would be. She worked multiple jobs just to keep the lights on and food on the table, all while still finding time to be there for LAMAR's practices, games, and training sessions. But her support went beyond just being present. Felicia took on the role of a coach. She would push LAMAR and his younger brother with intense training sessions in their backyard, setting up drills, sprints, and even tackling exercises. Felicia wasn't content with them simply having fun. She wanted LAMAR to be prepared for greatness. When LAMAR was 8, she would run alongside him during his team sprints, her voice steady with encouragement, yet filled with that relentless drive she instilled in him from the start. LAMAR once shared how his mother would even dress in football gear to practice with him and his brother, tackling them to toughen them up. "People don't believe me," LAMAR said in an interview, smiling at the memory. "She was an athlete. She'd go back there and play football with us. She was just making us tougher." That toughness she passed on to LAMAR became his most powerful weapon. In the sweltering Florida heat, Felicia would make LAMAR and his brother train 6 days a week, flipping a 300-pound tire and pounding it with a sledgehammer to build their strength. When the neighborhood kids saw LAMAR and his mom out there, flipping tires in the backyard, they might have laughed or thought it was strange. But Felicia didn't care about appearances. She was building something special. She was raising her son to withstand anything that life or football threw his way. It was also Felicia who drilled into LAMAR the importance of discipline and focus. She insisted he keep his grades up, making education a priority alongside football. At first, LAMAR wasn't as focused on school, but he quickly realized that if he wanted to play football, he needed to excel in the classroom. He went from struggling academically to achieving straight A's, driven by the same fire his mother had instilled in him. With Felicia's guidance, LAMAR became known as a force on the field. But to those who knew him best, it wasn't just his athleticism that stood out, it was his relentless determination and focus. While other kids would hang out after school, LAMAR would go straight home. He skipped parties, avoided distractions, and focused entirely on his dreams. When his high school teammates would join him for Sunday workouts led by Felicia, some couldn't keep up. They would throw up or quit, but LAMAR never wavered. Felicia's only rule for those workouts was simple. She wouldn't make her kids do anything she couldn't do herself. Her strength became his strength, her discipline his foundation. From those early days in Pompano Beach, it was clear LAMAR Jackson wasn't just any kid playing football. He was a young man shaped by loss, sharpened by discipline, and driven by an unbreakable bond with his mother. Felicia had once promised him, after losing his father and grandmother, that they would be something special one day. And with every yard he ran, every pass he threw, and every game he played, Lamar carried that promise with him, a promise that would guide him through his toughest battles yet. By the time LAMAR Jackson reached high school, his raw talent was impossible to ignore. He enrolled at Boynton Beach High School in Florida, where he quickly became known for his electrifying speed and uncanny ability to create plays out of nothing. Whether he was scrambling out of a collapsing pocket or throwing deep with pinpoint precision, Lamar had a presence on the field that was almost unreal. But while he was tearing up defenses and making highlight-worthy plays every week, there was something that loomed over his high school career: the question of whether he should even be playing quarterback. At Boynton Beach, Lamar ran a spread offense that allowed him to utilize his speed, his instincts, and his strong arm. He was unstoppable. But as incredible as he was, the narrative around him kept returning to one-point critics just couldn't accept him as a real quarterback. In fact, some of the same coaches and scouts who marveled at his athleticism were the ones trying to convince him that his future wasn't under center. They saw a skilled runner, a playmaker, and suggested that Lamar would be better suited as a wide receiver or defensive back. It was a suggestion Lamar found hard to stomach. Here he was, leading his team, putting up staggering numbers, and dominating his competition, and yet, the people around him still wanted to slot him into a box that didn't fit. To Lamar, it felt like they were ignoring everything he could do. He saw the position as one he had already earned through hours of work and sacrifice. He had studied, trained, and given his all to become a quarterback. But time and again, he was told that he wasn't right for the role. For some coaches, it was a matter of fitting the mold. They weren't used to seeing someone like Lamar, someone with his speed, his build, and his background calling the shots on offense. But Lamar was clear. He would be a quarterback or nothing. That mentality became a defining trait for him, and he began repeating it like a mantra. He didn't care about positions that others thought he could excel in. For Lamar, the only position that mattered was quarterback. The determination he'd learned from his mother kicked in stronger than ever, fueling him through every game and every practice, and he delivered. Over his junior and senior seasons, Lamar recorded over 2,000 yards passing, more than 1,000 rushing yards, and accounted for 53 touchdowns. It was more than enough to earn him recognition as a dual-threat quarterback, a term that tried to capture his versatility but often undersold his intelligence, his decision-making, and his pure passing ability. For Lamar, those years at Boynton Beach were a time of personal transformation. He wasn't just proving himself to his teammates and his school. He was proving himself to a world that seemed set on doubting his potential. But despite his stunning stats and a highlight reel that spoke for itself, college recruiters largely viewed him as an athlete rather than a quarterback. In the world of college football scouting, being labeled as an athlete, especially as a black quarterback, was almost code. It was a way of suggesting that Lamar wasn't a strategic play caller, that he was raw talent rather than a leader on the field. Still, Lamar refused to conform to anyone's idea of what he should be. Every time he stepped onto the field, he carried with him the mentality that he was going to prove them wrong. He didn't just want to be an athlete, he wanted to redefine what it meant to be a quarterback. His focus remained unshakable as he prioritized his studies to keep his grades up. Understanding that football wasn't guaranteed, he spent countless hours outside of team practices, watching footage, training, and honing his craft, all with the goal of showing that he was capable of mastering the nuances of the game. By his senior year, Lamar's performance spoke louder than any critique. Boynton Beach's athletic director and coaches were stunned by his ability to turn any play into a scoring opportunity. His athleticism was undeniable, but so was his commitment to the art of quarterbacking. He studied his playbook rigorously, learning the intricacies of reading defenses and mastering his progressions. In his own way, Lamar was already preparing himself for the challenges he knew would come in the next level of football. But despite his efforts, colleges kept circling back to the same question: why wouldn't he play wide receiver? Offers came in, but most of them suggested a position change. For Lamar, it was an insult, a dismissal of everything he had worked for. As far as he was concerned, He had already shown what he could do as a quarterback. The choice to stand firm became one of the defining moments of his young career. He wasn't willing to back down, even if it meant losing out on opportunities. It was at this point that Louisville's head coach, Bobby Petrino, entered the picture. Petrino promised Lamar's mother that her son would get his shot at playing quarterback, without any suggestions of moving to another position. That was all Lamar needed to hear. He was headed to Louisville, ready to prove once again that he belonged under center. For Lamar, high school ended as it began, with people questioning him. But he had made his mark, standing tall through every doubt and every rejection. It was in those years that Lamar Jackson developed the unbreakable resilience he would carry with him to college, and eventually to the NFL. He had become the quarterback who wouldn't back down, the quarterback who refused to let anyone else define his journey. And as he looked toward college, Lamar knew one thing for sure. He was ready to show the world exactly who he was, and why he would never give up the fight to be quarterback. When Lamar Jackson arrived at the University of Louisville, he was stepping into a whole new world, one where he would need to prove himself all over again. Despite his accomplishments in high school, many still doubted he had what it took to be a true quarterback. But to Lamar, this was just one more opportunity to prove his doubters wrong. Louisville's head coach, Bobby Petrino, had promised Lamar and his mother, Felicia, that he would have a real chance to play quarterback. Still, adjusting to the college game was no easy feat. At Boynton Beach, Lamar had mostly improvised, relying on his instincts and raw talent to dominate defenses. But in college, he encountered a more complex system, one that demanded even more precision, structure, and study. Louisville's playbook was massive, and learning it felt like learning a new language. Initially, he struggled to understand the terminology, the strategies, and the layers involved in executing each play. It was overwhelming, but Lamar was committed. To speed up his progress, Lamar worked tirelessly, often waking up before dawn to study film. He would meet with the coaching staff to review his mistakes and learn how to read different defensive schemes. This wasn't just about athleticism anymore. It was about transforming himself into a well-rounded quarterback. He spent so many hours in the film room that he would leave exhausted, sometimes questioning if he was on the right path. But each time he doubted, he reminded himself that he had come too far to back down now. Lamar's freshman season in 2015 was a time of learning and growth. He started 8 of 12 games, showing flashes of brilliance as both a passer and a runner. Though his stats weren't eye-popping, his potential was undeniable. The coaching staff saw his rare ability to turn broken plays into scoring drives and realized they had something special on their hands. But Petrino also saw areas that needed refinement. Lamar's instinct was to run when the pocket collapsed, a habit that Petrino knew could limit his development as a quarterback. To push Lamar to grow as a passer, Petrino sometimes called plays dead the moment Lamar moved out of the pocket, forcing him to stay calm and look for open receivers. It was tough. Lamar wanted to rely on his instincts, but Petrino was determined to help him evolve. At times he felt frustrated, but deep down, he knew Petrino's guidance was what he needed. And soon enough, the hard work began to pay off. By the end of the season, Lamar had started to find his rhythm, earning the MVP title in the Music City Bowl. After throwing for 227 yards and rushing for another 226 in a thrilling victory. As his sophomore year approached, Lamar knew he was ready to make a statement. The 2016 season would become legendary not only for Louisville, but for college football as a whole. In the opening game of the season, Lamar set the tone by scoring 8 touchdowns in the first half alone, a feat that sent shockwaves through the college football world. Game after game, he stunned defenses with his quick decision-making and explosive runs. Against a highly ranked Florida State team, he scored 5 touchdowns, leading Louisville to a blowout victory that sent a clear message. Lamar Jackson was no ordinary quarterback. That season, Lamar racked up over 5,000 total yards and 51 touchdowns, breaking records and leading Louisville to one of its highest rankings in nearly a decade. His performance won him the prestigious Heisman Trophy, making him the first player in Louisville history to earn the award. At only 19 years old, Lamar was now officially the best player in college football. But even with the Heisman Trophy in his hands, the doubts didn't disappear. Critics argued that his passing game still wasn't polished, that he was more of an athlete than a quarterback. The suggestion that he would need to change positions to succeed at the next level still lingered in the air. But Lamar wasn't done proving himself. He returned to Louisville for his junior season, determined to show he was more than just a runner. Over the next year, he improved his passing mechanics, accuracy, and decision-making. Under Petrino's guidance, he spent more time in the pocket, reading defenses and executing complex passing plays. He threw for over 3,600 yards and 27 touchdowns, while adding another 1,600 yards and 18 touchdowns on the ground. Though he fell short of winning a second Heisman, his stats spoke volumes. Lamar Jackson was a quarterback who could run, not just a runner who could throw. By the end of his junior season, Lamar knew he was ready for the NFL. The doubts he'd faced in high school had only grown louder as he made his way through college. But with every touchdown, every record broken, and every yard gained, he had proven that he was a quarterback in every sense of the word. He had redefined what it meant to play the position, blending athleticism with the intellect and skill required of any top-tier QB. As he declared for the NFL draft, Lamar was fully aware of the critics who would continue to doubt him. But he was no stranger to skepticism, and this time, he was ready to take his battle to the biggest stage in football. Declaring for the 2018 NFL Draft was a defining moment for Lamar Jackson. He was now a Heisman Trophy winner, and his stats from Louisville spoke for themselves. But despite his achievements, the questions around Lamar's role as a quarterback grew even louder. Scouts, analysts, and NFL executives questioned whether he had what it took to succeed as a traditional quarterback in the league. Many pointed to his athleticism as both an asset and a liability, framing him as a raw talent who would be better suited as a wide receiver. The whispers weren't subtle. Lamar Jackson was the only quarterback in the draft class asked to consider a position change. For Lamar, this was an insult. After everything he'd achieved, he was being asked yet again to abandon his dream of playing quarterback. This moment wasn't just about his abilities on the field. It was about challenging an ingrained bias that questioned whether a quarterback with his style and background could lead a professional team. Black quarterbacks had faced similar skepticism for decades, and Lamar knew he was up against more than just doubts about his skills. He was up against an entire system that had long resisted change. But Lamar was as determined as ever. He refused to entertain the idea of working out as a wide receiver, skipping any drills that weren't directly related to being a quarterback. At the NFL Combine, where players typically run the 40-yard dash to show off their speed, Lamar made a bold decision. He didn't run it. He wanted to prove he was a passer, not just a runner, and chose to focus on quarterback drills alone. This decision baffled some scouts, but for Lamar, it was simple. He was there to prove he could lead an offense, not to showcase his speed as a potential receiver. The 2018 draft was filled with highly touted quarterbacks: Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and Josh Rosen were all projected to go in the first round. But as each pick came and went, Lamar remained on the board, watching as teams passed him over one by one. The moment was painful, a stark reminder that despite his achievements, there were still those who didn't see him as a real quarterback. Finally, with the 32nd and last pick of the first round, the Baltimore Ravens made a move that would change Lamar's life. They traded up to select him, seeing in Lamar what others had missed: a rare talent with the potential to redefine what a quarterback could be. The Ravens head coach, John Harbaugh, saw Lamar as a quarterback and nothing else. Baltimore had drafted him with the intention of developing him as their future franchise leader. Even as the newest member of the Ravens, Lamar's journey wasn't going to be easy. Baltimore already had an established quarterback in Joe Flacco, and the plan was to let Lamar learn and develop under him for a few years. But Lamar's chance came much sooner than anyone expected. Midway through the season, Flacco went down with an injury, and suddenly, all eyes were on Lamar. With barely half a season of experience under his belt, He was now the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. This was the opportunity he'd waited his whole life for, the chance to show the NFL and the world that he was right where he belonged. In his first start against the Cincinnati Bengals, Lamar's performance was electric. He threw for 150 yards and rushed for 117 more, setting a franchise record for rushing yards by a quarterback. He won the game, silencing critics who doubted his ability to lead an offense. Over the next 7 games, Lamar led the Ravens to 6 wins and secured a playoff spot. Despite stepping in midway through the season, Lamar's impact on the team was undeniable. His style of play transformed the Ravens' offense into something entirely new and unpredictable. And for the first time, the NFL was starting to see the quarterback that Lamar had always believed he could be. But while he had silenced some critics, others remained, pointing to his inexperience and questioning his ability to sustain success as a passer. The Ravens' playoff run was short-lived, with a tough loss in their first game, giving critics more fuel to question his longevity. The media speculated whether Lamar could develop into the kind of quarterback who could take his team deep into the playoffs. But for Lamar, the playoff loss was just another chapter in a career defined by proving people wrong. He would go into the offseason more determined than ever, ready to keep fighting for his place as a quarterback in the league. After securing the Ravens' starting quarterback role, Lamar Jackson entered the 2019 season with everything to prove. He wasn't just out to win games, he was on a mission to prove that he belonged as an NFL quarterback. He trained tirelessly in the offseason, working with coaches to improve his passing mechanics and studying film until he knew defenses inside and out. His goal was clear: silence the critics once and for all. Lamar started the season in jaw-dropping fashion. In the opening game against the Miami Dolphins, he threw for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, finishing with a perfect passer rating. As he walked off the field, Lamar couldn't resist the urge to remind everyone of the doubts that had followed him since high school. In the post-game interview, he flashed a grin and said, "Not bad for a running back." That single line spoke volumes. It was a subtle yet powerful clap back at everyone who had suggested he should switch positions, who had labeled him as a runner rather than a passer. Week after week, Lamar continued to dazzle the league. Against the Arizona Cardinals, he became the first player in NFL history to throw for over 250 yards and rush for over 120 yards in a single game. By midseason, he was not only breaking records, but also redefining what it meant to be a quarterback. With each game, he proved that his dual threat style, once doubted by nearly everyone, wasn't just effective, it was revolutionary. Lamar's impact extended beyond the stat sheet. His energy, humility, and focus on teamwork transformed the Ravens' locker room culture. He became a leader through his actions, inspiring his teammates to buy into a system that thrived on speed, unpredictability, and relentless determination. Under Lamar's leadership, the Ravens finished the season with a record of 14 wins and 2 losses, the best in the league. His performance included over 3,000 passing yards, 36 passing touchdowns, and 1,206 rushing yards, the most rushing yards ever recorded by a quarterback in a single season. Lamar wasn't just playing well, he was playing at a level that the NFL had rarely seen. His contributions didn't go unnoticed. At the end of the season, Lamar was named the NFL's most valuable player in a unanimous vote, making him only the second player in history to earn a unanimous MVP title, joining Tom Brady in that elite category. It was a monumental achievement, a recognition that validated years of sacrifice, resilience, and an unbreakable belief in his dream. For Lamar, it was proof that he belonged among the best. Despite his MVP season, the pressure on Lamar didn't let up. The Ravens entered the playoffs as heavy favorites, facing off against the Tennessee Titans. But the game didn't go as planned. Tennessee's defense stifled Baltimore's explosive offense, and Lamar's efforts to carry the team weren't enough to overcome the Titans' strategy. The Ravens fell short, and critics once again questioned whether Lamar's style of play could hold up under playoff pressure. To Lamar, the loss was a painful reminder that success in the NFL is fleeting, and that every accomplishment brings new expectations. While others questioned his playoff potential, He saw the game as a lesson, a chance to come back stronger and more prepared. That offseason, he committed to improving his decision-making and passing accuracy. Determined to show the league that he was capable of greatness, both in the regular season and the playoffs. Lamar's 2019 season remains one of the most impressive by a quarterback in NFL history. He didn't just shatter records, he forced the league to reevaluate what a quarterback could be. In a world that had constantly tried to box him into a different role, Lamar broke the mold, proving that he was a quarterback on his own terms. And while the playoff loss was a setback, Lamar's journey was far from over. He had shown flashes of his limitless potential, but now he was more motivated than ever to bring a championship home to Baltimore. Even after his record-breaking 2019 season, Lamar Jackson found himself under constant scrutiny. The critics were relentless, nitpicking his performance and questioning whether he could lead the Ravens to postseason success. For many, his MVP season wasn't enough. They wanted proof that he could consistently win when it mattered most. The narrative shifted from doubting his ability as a quarterback to doubting his ability to win a championship. And for Lamar, it was yet another reminder that the goalposts were always moving. The 2020 season presented new challenges. Teams across the league had spent the offseason studying Lamar's unique dual threat style, and they began adjusting their defenses to contain him. With a full season of tape to analyze, opposing coaches crafted strategies specifically designed to limit Lamar's rushing opportunities, forcing him to rely more heavily on his passing game. Lamar, however, was prepared for this. He had spent countless hours in the offseason working on his accuracy, decision-making, and pocket awareness. He knew that if he was going to silence his critics, he needed to show that he could win games with his arm just as effectively as with his legs. Lamar's commitment to improvement was clear, and once again, he delivered on the field. In 2020, he threw for over 2,700 yards and rushed for over 1,000, making him the first quarterback in NFL history to record multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. But despite these achievements, the Ravens season came to an end in the playoffs with a loss to the Buffalo Bills. And just like that, the doubts resurfaced. Some analysts began labeling Lamar as a regular season quarterback, a player who could dazzle throughout the year but falter when the stakes were highest. For Lamar, the criticism was personal. He had always believed in his own ability to lead and win at the highest level, and each playoff loss only fueled his desire to keep pushing forward. He was determined to show that he was more than capable of delivering a championship for Baltimore. Over the next few seasons, Lamar faced additional obstacles. Injuries became a recurring issue, sidelining him for portions of the 2021 and 2022 seasons. Each injury was met with fresh doubts about his durability and longevity as a dual-threat quarterback. Some questioned whether his style of play was sustainable, suggesting that he was taking too many risks by running as often as he did. But for Lamar, playing any other way was unthinkable. His style wasn't just how he played, it was who he was. Despite the setbacks, Lamar's connection to Baltimore remained unbreakable. His teammates and coaches stood by him, recognizing the impact he had on the team's culture and performance. Head coach John Harbaugh often praised Lamar's resilience, calling him a phenomenal success and a player who had transformed the Ravens from the inside out. To Harbaugh, Lamar was more than just a player. He was a leader, a figure who inspired his teammates and brought out the best in everyone around him. As Lamar headed into his sixth season, he knew he was facing more than just the usual scrutiny. With his contract up for negotiation, there were questions about his future in Baltimore. Some wondered if he would demand a record-breaking deal, while others speculated whether the Ravens would be willing to commit long-term to a quarterback who played such a high-risk style. But to those closest to Lamar, his dedication to the Ravens was unwavering. Baltimore was more than just his team, it was his home. Despite the doubts, injuries, and playoff losses, Lamar Jackson's journey was far from over. He had proven himself as a quarterback, an MVP, and a leader, and he wasn't done yet. For Lamar, the weight of expectations was heavy, but it was a burden he was willing to carry. He had spent his whole life defying the odds, and now, more than ever, He was determined to show that he could lead the Ravens to a championship. His critics might never be satisfied, but Lamar knew that the only opinion that truly mattered was his own. And as he prepared for yet another season, he carried with him the same unbreakable confidence that had guided him from the very beginning. As Lamar Jackson looked ahead, he knew his story was far from over. But no matter what the future held, his journey had already left an undeniable mark on the game of football. Lamar wasn't just a quarterback, he was a symbol of resilience, a player who shattered stereotypes and proved that success isn't defined by fitting into someone else's mold. For Lamar, being a quarterback was never about following tradition, it was about rewriting it on his own terms. Growing up in Pompano Beach, overcoming personal tragedy, defying critics, and rising to the peak of his sport, Lamar had spent every step of his journey proving that he belonged. He never once compromised his vision or let doubt take root. When coaches, scouts, and analysts told him he would be better as a wide receiver, Lamar stayed true to himself, determined to succeed as a quarterback. He knew his path would be harder, that he would face more scrutiny and obstacles, but he chose that journey anyway, because to Lamar, success only mattered if he achieved it his way. To his teammates, Lamar was more than just a leader on the field. He was a source of inspiration. He didn't lead with loud speeches or by putting himself above others. He led by example, with his humility, his work ethic, and his unbreakable spirit. In a sport dominated by egos, Lamar's quiet strength stood out. He had faced ridicule, doubts, and setbacks, but he never lost sight of his purpose. Through every hardship, he continued to play with the same passion, the same drive that he had as a young boy running drills with his mother in their backyard. Lamar's journey was a testament to everyone who had ever been told they couldn't achieve their dreams. He became a role model for young athletes across the country, especially black quarterbacks who looked up to him and saw what was possible. To those players, Lamar's career was proof that they could break down barriers, that they could succeed by staying true to who they were. Lamar's legacy went beyond the records he set or the titles he earned. It was about the doors he opened, the expectations he defied, and the courage he showed in defining greatness on his own terms. Even with his MVP title and his historic seasons, Lamar's story wasn't just about football. It was about proving that one's identity could be a source of strength, that no one should have to change who they are to find success. Lamar played every game with that belief, with an unshakable faith in his purpose, and a fierce determination to inspire others. His story was a reminder that the path to greatness isn't always straight, that sometimes it's the road less traveled that leads to the most profound victories. And so, as Lamar Jackson took the field season after season, he carried with him not just the hopes of a franchise, but the weight of a legacy he was building from the ground up. He knew that his journey was about more than wins and losses. It was about inspiring those who watched him to believe in their own potential. Lamar had transformed from a young boy, defying the odds, to a man whose influence stretched far beyond the gridiron. He had become a symbol of resilience, of authenticity, of breaking down every barrier put in his way. No one could say for certain what the future held for Lamar Jackson, but one thing was undeniable: he had already changed the game. And for everyone who had ever doubted him, Lamar's message was clear: he would continue to be a quarterback on his terms, no matter what anyone thought. Because for Lamar, greatness was never about fitting in. It was about standing out, about proving that the true mark of a champion is the courage to be yourself, no matter the cost.